Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. If I don't have questions, I don't have a show. Want to jump right in? I've got 2 questions this week from last week. I've been noticing a few things here in YouTube land the last week. It's been a little slow. Everybody seems to be occupied with other things. Maybe YouTube's starting to wane off. I know a couple people have done kind of like posts in the last week where I've noticed them talking about things waning off and wanting to change direction. It's been going on a little bit. So I'm not sure I'm at the point where I'm changing direction yet, but I'm definitely thinking about some things, that's for sure. I've been putting out covers. Matter of fact, I put out a cover on this. I put out 2 covers on one day. One was I wanted to put out, and one was a mistake. The mistake got watched, of course. It was the Tom Petty cover, Free Falling. And about an hour after I released this big band cover, I noticed everybody was commenting on Free Falling, and I didn't realize I actually released Free Falling. Nobody was commenting on the big band cover. So this morning, this is Wednesday evening, I'm after work, I released a big band cover, okay? Now, I released a big band cover this morning. Nobody saw it because I originally released it and then I pulled it back and now it's just hanging out there. It's called Now What? I have 15 views on it. I think 10 of them are mine, to be honest. Because I have a tendency to look at my videos every other day, kind of like checking things out, seeing if I want to release it or not. So I released another video. I think I released The Red Door. The chart's still sitting here. And I'm starting to get it picked up. So nobody saw the one I released last week. It's gone under the radar. It's the missing video. So what I'm thinking about doing is I might have to re-release it if nobody really sees it. I usually get X number of people watching videos. I know it's slowed down a little bit, and I know guys are not watching my big band videos right now. But pop stuff's going over really well. Anything I put out that's kind of popular music seems to go out well. But the big band stuff's been kind of waning last little bit. I, of course, enjoy the big band stuff, so I'm going to keep doing the big band stuff. That being said, if Now What doesn't get seen by anybody, I'm going to pull it back and release it for another day. That's just the way it's going to be, because there's no use sending something out when I only get 30 views on it, because it gets buried. Like a lot of my great covers I had early on in my career here on YouTube. The funniest thing about my YouTube career is that the videos I made in the first 6 months that I really started messing with YouTube, and after when I began my transition from my last company I was at, the one about Christian worship drumming, the one about fiberglass toms. I mean, I've got 5 videos that I get most of my new views from and new subscribers from. It's crazy. And they're all that early stuff. So, but I have some early big band covers and Music Minus One covers I did that rarely got like 30, 40 views. Maybe they're up to 100 now. So it's kind of funny how I've got a back catalog and I've got a lot of videos. I mean, I got almost 500 videos right now, so I'm out of control. Definitely out of control, and I thank you all for watching, those of you that watch this show too. I mean, this show seems to get people to watch. You guys like to listen to me talk, apparently. So I do appreciate that. But anyhow, I was thinking about doing something crazy, like if I got like, 25 or 30 comments on my Now What video, maybe I'd give away a cymbal. It'd be regifting, I will tell you that. I won't tell you what cymbal it is, but it would be regifting. But somebody out there would know what I'm talking about, by the way. But I don't know. It would have to be like in a week period of time. So if I got, let's make it really a target. If I got 50 people to comment on my Now What video, and all they have to say is, hated it, loved it, whatever, cymbal, I would think about giving away a cymbal. But it has to be 1 week period. From the time this goes out, you've got 1 week. That's it. 1 week to find the video and comment on it. Okay? Other than that, that's it. You'd have to go find that video. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if anybody does it. And I'll see how I get that re-gifted cymbal to somebody. All right, here's the first question of the week. This one comes from Baxter Music, Sorted Music. Baxter said, great video, Earl. I have a question for the next show. Have you had any terrible experiences playing backline drums? I almost always find myself dealing with stands and stools that just won't adjust. And when someone is nearly double my weight, I find myself reaching for the pedals. It's always a nightmare. Great show. Keep them up. Well, thank you, Baxter. I have dealt with backline mostly in churches. I mean, I can think of maybe 1 or 2 gigs in my career where there's been backline. Backline wasn't really popular back in the 80s and 90s. The first time I ever really saw a backline set was when I played this festival called Creation Festival in Pennsylvania back in 1990, and I used my own drums on that gig. That was a gig I used my own drums on. So, but I started to see more backline in the 90s, but I didn't really get, you know, I was doing the type of gigs where I would bring my own kit. It was around town type gigs. Backline's become extremely popular in major metros today. Nashville, New York, Los Angeles. A lot of these club owners don't want you bringing drums in through their hotels or their clubs, and they'll have a kit there. I go to there's a little restaurant in Fort Myers my wife and I go to, and we see her mom, and it's got a kit for the drummer there. No, but the drummers still bring in their kits. It's kind of funny. There's something about the local gigs, you want to play your own drums. But churches are a different ball game. And I've played a lot of different churches down here in West Palm. There's usually a kit there, and most of the times I'll play the kit. And you're right, some of the kits have got missing felts, missing cymbal sleeves. Sometimes the seat's so terrible, you have to bring your own seat to it, or there is no seat. I've had that happen. Sometimes the snare stands are bad. What I normally do on a local gig where there's backline, like a church gig, I will always bring a snare drum, and I will always bring a stick bag that's got extra felts and cymbal sleeves I can put on the cymbal stands if I need to. And a lot of times I'll bring my own seat. And I always bring moon gel or something like moon gel, like my little gel clings, you know. I've got a thing of moon gel with gel clings. But why? Because usually the toms I can make sound okay if I've got moon gel. Snare drums, if they're crap, I can't make them sound good. I'll always have my own snare. I'll always bring my own cymbals because I don't want to play their cymbals unless it's a church where you're doing 3 services and you want to bail out. And then you're stuck there if you don't, because a lot of times you can't get the cymbals down. So I've done that before at some of those churches where you play multiple services. But yeah, usually I'll bring cymbals and a snare drum to any local church down here where I'm going to use a backline. That's pretty common. But yeah, I've had some really bad experiences with the drums being really in bad shape. Usually the heads, tom head's bad, snares just broken. You know, snares are one of those things that if the snare's not right, it just doesn't sound right. A lot of guys don't know how to tune snares, don't know how to set up snares, so that's a problem. And a lot of the cymbals down here are just really bad. Now, I have played a few churches where they got Zildjians, and they're nice. But there are a lot of churches down here that don't have that. So I've had some really bad experiences with it. Now, let me tell you another story. My wife interviewed the drummer for the band The Rippingtons. I did a cover of The Rippingtons not too long ago called Aspen. And the drummer that played on Aspen was a guy named Tony Morales. And Tony Morales was the drummer of the Rippingtons back in the 90s, early 90s to about mid-90s-ish. After the Modern Drummer article, he retired from the band, and I think he went into like a computer business or something. I haven't seen his name on anything in a long, long time. But Tony came down and was playing this club called Club Bennett. And the interesting thing about the Rippingtons, when they did tours, they would have one place their equipment would show up at. Then they'd have a middle club that was kind of a backline club, and then they had the next club was the place their equipment would show up at. So it was customary for them to throw their cymbals and a snare drum, and a pedals on the bus, and the rest of the kit went to the next gig so they could set up for the next gig. But they didn't pull it out for the backline gig. So the first time I saw Tony Morales playing with the Rippingtons, he was playing on the backline kit at this place called the Club Bennett in New Jersey. And the backline kit at the time was like a 24-inch Slingerland chrome bass drum with a huge tom. I don't know, it was a 12 by 15 or a 10 by 14 and a 16 by 18 floor tom. Massive kind of bottom-like almost kit. For a guy who's playing fusion, he plays 10, 12, 14, 16 kind of thing. He had one of those kind of Fusion X kind of kits. Anyhow, saw him play. He nailed it. He still did the gig. He had no choice. That was the backline. That's what he got. But I said to him, and this was before my wife interviewed him, but after this she ended up interviewing him. I said, the next year you come to Club Bennett, let me know, and I'll let you use my Gretsch kit. So that's what happened. He was coming into town. The MD article just went out. He actually called me and said, hey, do you want to come down to Club Bennett, bring your drums, I'll use them for the gig, you can come to sound check, you got to stay for both shows, and you can invite like 8 friends. So we had like this big party at Club Bennett. We had like a front row table, and I brought my kids, a friend brought his kids. It was just a regular jam party, and my drums, of course, there were too. We were in both shows, but it was pretty wild. That was a lot of fun. So I will tell you, backline sometimes is not really that great. But I started seeing it in the 80s and 90s, but I really have seen it in churches, and churches are usually the problem. My worst scenario with a backline situation was I had to play an E-kit at a church, and apparently they didn't know I was coming, so they didn't pull the E-kit out. And they set the whole stage up, and the stage basically we're on the floor, actually. And the floor had no rug, and the E-kit bass drum was just sliding all over the place. And we had to take gaff tape and tape down the bass drum pedal and the pad to the floor, and tape the hi-hat pedal to the floor, so I could play the hi-hat on this little TD, I don't know, it was a TD-10 kit, I think it was. So that was a tough night. But once I gaffed it down, it didn't go anywhere. I just stayed there. But rehearsal was kind of sliding all over the place, driving me nuts. So anyhow, great question. Excellent question. My last question comes from my friend Brian Corey. Thank you, Brian. And I always appreciate when you leave comments and everything you do. He asked a great question this week. Last question was, were you ever in marching band in high school? And what did you play in the drum line? Well, I was in marching band in high school. Now, high school for us, when I was in high school, it wasn't a drum line scenario. It was literally a marching band. So we had, when I started in high school, it was 2 snare drums, 2 tenor toms, a bass drum, and cymbals. And I was given the role freshman year of I played cymbal. I didn't play cymbals for very long, I will tell you that. I think I played cymbals. I might have played bass drum, back and forth cymbals and bass drum the first year. Eventually got into the tenor drum. By sophomore, junior year, I was playing snare drum pretty regularly. And then senior year, they bought Tim Toms. Tim Toms were the 3 toms, and I got to play the Tim Toms. Problem was, the band director, who was not a drummer, who was an idiot, okay, I'll just say that flat out, he was an idiot. He was a saxophone player. He bought Tim Toms. He bought Ludwig Tim Toms. I think they were like a 10 by 14, a 10 by 16, and a 10 by 18, and they were stainless steel. That was the worst. I had to carry the stainless steel, and they were like heavy as heck. Luckily, I was a strong kid, but I probably have back problems from that stupid stainless steel Tim Tom kit I was playing. I'm not even sure we had those braces that they have on the Tim Toms now. I don't think we even had those metal brace back things that you used to carry the Tim Toms on. So I think I had 2 slings that you would use on a snare drum attached to hold this thing up across me. So it was almost like wearing like 2 slings, one this way, one that way, and playing these things. It was terrible. But it wasn't drumline. I had friends who actually played in the Garfield Cadets and the Bergen. Well, that was the Bergen County Cadets. They were the Garfield Cadets, became the Bergen County Cadets, and then there were the Bayonne Bridgemen. I had friends in college that went. I went to Jersey City State, so Bayonne was right next door. And I had a friend who played in the Bayonne Bridgemen. So I had some guys who did DCI, Drum Corps International. That's serious. That was the serious stuff. And then all of a sudden, by the 80s and 90s, you had all these high school bands trying to do DCI kind of things with a pit. And you played in the pit, and you had mallet instruments and timpanis and drum kits and also the marching guys. But marching band was marching band. I mean, we played cadences and we marched in parades and we did some small formations, but like I said, our band was terrible. Band director was the worst. And my favorite part about high school band was going to Disney World in sophomore year, and one of the guys who was one of the snare drummers was the popular senior at the time, so we had all the flag twirlers and cheerleaders hanging out with us because of him. Not because of me, but because of him. So that was interesting. Interesting trip. But other than that, all I can tell you is marching band was marching band, and snare drum and tenor drum was what I mostly played. Yeah. No fond memories of that. Sorry, Brian. But I did have a memory, so. Anyhow, that's Ask Earl Anything for this week. No real drum questions, drum kit questions about my kit or cymbals or anything, but hopefully you enjoyed some of my crazy stories. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and look forward to talking to you next time. Your questions make the show. If I don't have questions, I don't have a show. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye.